are there any, trends that you think, or any differences with digital marketing or digital media that, really took us from 2021 that may fade in, or that took us in 2020 that may fade in 2021, or something else that's going to be on the rise in 2021?
Okay, so great question, Keith. And it was ironic that at the beginning of January in 2021, I look back at my bold predictions from 2020, which was prior to COVID. I look back a year, and all three were dead on. I mean, in huge, like, one was going to be the use of micro influencers, skyrocketed. Matter of fact, so much so that in 2020, around the summertime, our governor Parson of Missouri said that he was going to start to use micro influencers, such as people like Ozzie Smith, to start working in our state for advocating for COVID relief type of programs, and that's actually happened. And I said that back then, and I was saying that to our profession. I was like, look, you want to boost your engagement, you want to boost getting attention, start leveraging using micro influencers. That was one. The other big one, the one that just went off the chart, was the use of live streaming. Live streaming went through the roof. Matter of fact, it was the top trend of 2020. Okay, meaning it was the most type of watched video content you could produce. And big part of that has to do with the fact that it's raw, it's real, it's authentic. If you make mistakes, people want to see it. They don't want to see these slick productions. That's what they want to see. Big pivot, turned out to be the biggest story of 2020 was live streaming. And then the last one had to do with social listening. And again, I was saying this to our team. I said, we've got a social listening. Now, I don't mean it from the standpoint, because I know there's some that might be watching thinking, yes, there's social listening where you can actually buy third-party tools that will social listen for you. I'm not talking about that type of social listening. I'm talking about the times where you can start following your hashtags, where you can start following topics, you can start following people, and paying attention to what's going on, in your local community, and just seeing what that conversation is and looking for ways that you can jump in. So again, all those things exploded in 2020. Now, I'll tell you what else exploded, Keith, because this is a really important point. For I would say probably the first 8 months of the year, or as soon as COVID hit, obviously March. So say from March to probably somewhere around the October-ish area, it was kind of like, I say this all the time, it was kind of like running social media was like playing a game of checkers. Like, because we weren't working, you could pretty much put anything out and people would be watching it. And because there was more people on social media than ever before, matter of fact, there was a 5% increase of total viewers of adults worldwide. Okay. Which, by the way, that's also an increase over 5 years by 33%. So in other words, social media is here to stay. And now I can say to this entire group in our audience that over 50% of the entire world population that are adults are now using social media. Now, that was good in the beginning when we weren't working. And for example, we would put our Zagging 101, we would get literally thousands of replay views. And then it seemingly overnight, when everyone started going back to work, we went from thousands to hundreds. Okay. And we were looking at what those variables, were. And we realized the correlation is the consumption pattern has changed. Now, let's take you into 2021. Here's my big bold prediction. I predicted this. I think I put it out a month ago, and you can find it certainly on my Twitter. But it's this: the most important vehicle you could use today is using video content. I posted this, I think yesterday or the day before, is that you'll see 1,200% more engagement using short video content under 2 minutes, which happens to be that sweet spot. Okay. As compared to putting out a post with just an image or just text by itself. That's what the research has shown us. And by the way, that research was done by HubSpot. So a very credible source in terms of where we're getting that information. So it tells me that if you can get in the game of doing these under 2 minute videos, like actually, Kim, Pizza and P is doing right now with your promo. You're keeping these short clips, and you're getting more view and more traction because of it. Now, the only caveat I'll give, Keith, and to wrap up this question, is that long form videos. Okay, the long form video, even for professional development, you'd be far better off offering the video. Say it's a 45-minute session or a 50, right? Like a lot of the conventions are, is to package it in like 15-minute increments. So have like part 1, part 2, part 3. Okay. Now here's the other thing I want to say on this last thing. Here's my other big trend. And this is a trend that most people aren't even aware of. This is why this week, by the way, in tomorrow, right? Or this week, I just say this week. This week in Zag Pro Masterclass, we're going to be talking about, YouTube analytics. And what you're going to find, if you tag these things right, that you can gain a lot more viewers and engagement simply by your topic, especially when people go to another video with a related topic. And now, if by YouTube standards, if people see your content of value, you'll come up as what's called suggested. And now the YouTube platform is working for you rather than you working against it. And that's something that we've seen. And Kim, you kind of alluded to it last week. You were showing the data right here from the Pizza and PE podcast. And we saw that data, last week. Yeah. So you're going to hear me talk more and more about this because it really does have some implications in terms of how you use your video. And that way, if you put them in the shorter playlists, again, the average YouTube video, it's 11 minutes and 22 seconds. Last year, that was obviously a YouTube statistic. So why do I say all this? Because again, when I look at working with any organization, any group, I'm always looking at saying, I want to play the odds to my favor. And that's why instead of, like I said, 2020, for that period, basically from March to say October, that was like playing a game of checkers. Today, if you're managing social media accounts, you're playing a game of chess. Every move matters. And that's why the analytics are so important. That's why the trends are so important. That's why social listening is so important. And that's why you've seen the best practices. All three, you've seen them in the Zag Pro Masterclass. We started with 10. And through a year of data, we added 10 more based on our experiences, whether it was Missouri Healthy Schools, whether it was even some of Shape America's data, or certainly Most Shape's data. So again, that when you ask about the shifts, that's why it's kind of like, hey, buckle up, level up, because it's gotten a lot harder to get content seen today than ever before. And why? Because here's my final statistic, then we'll move on to the next question. That is because there's over 60 billion. Let's say that again. There's over 60 billion pieces of content being posted across multiple social media platforms a day. Wow. And then if that wasn't bad enough, depending on where you live, then you're also getting bombarded with between 4,000 to 10,000 ad messages every single day. Wow. So you add that together, we're not competing against ourselves. We're not competing against competitors here. We are competing against the 60 billion messages being produced every single day. That's what's made it so challenging for everyone. That's why everyone's saying, I feel stuck. I'm not sure what to do. That's because what once was working, like I said, I gave you our data, like a Zagging 101 episode, man, and the replays within like a few days, we'd have, 1,000 to 1,500 views easily. And then what happens? The shift, then we're getting hundreds. And that's because we paid attention to our analytics. And that's when we knew we had to zag and pivot. And we also knew it was actually kind of good that we did, because we felt that the masterclass, we could do a deeper dive. Not to mention, I think you all appreciate the types of, I'm saying this loosely, homework. Obviously, nothing's graded, but you get feedback on it. Right. But the homework is just to stimulate your mind towards, these key areas, like, as you know, with the digital media clarity blueprint is your starting point to understand these key 20 questions, so that again, you can do what? You can start to understand, hey, what's our niche? What problem we're trying to solve? What's our best platform? Who's our audience? Where are they? I mean, we made it really easy to say, if you can fill this out, again, even with just not a depth of knowledge yet, but at least gives you thinking in the right direction. So anyways, to answer your question, Keith, yeah, there's a massive shift. And I'm saying that massive shift from 2020 to 2021. It's become much more challenging because of what I just stated.